Good evening, everyone. What is going on? Happy Tuesday. We got a few people still jumping in, so we'll give them 1 minute and we will get going. Uh, how's everyone doing?
Doing great.
Doing great. You guys can hear me. Awesome, awesome. Good to have you in here, Kevin.
Good to be here. I'm excited.
Awesome, awesome. Yep. Let me go ahead and bring my slides up. So we got a jam-packed session today. We're going to dive into different property types and we're going to kind of go through, give you guys some things to kind of think through. And then on the back end, we're going to have one of my clients, good friend DK, is going to come and talk about commercial real estate. And in particular, commercial real estate investing made accessible and how you can make the leap into commercial real estate and share a little bit of his journey. So I'm super excited about that. And with that, there we go. Property types and investment strategies. We'll go ahead and as people come in, we'll let them jump in. But we're going to talk about exploring the different types out there. There's so many different ways to invest in real estate, from being completely active on this end to being completely passive on the other end. So anywhere from wholesaling, fix and flip, buy multifamily, value add, being completely passive in multifamily or other commercial deals. I talked to an individual last week that has a storefront retail space in I think it was I forgot what part of Virginia, a little bit south of Richmond, outside of Richmond, and looking at what leasing rates is, the rates per square foot, and having long-term tenants in the triple net leases. And so a whole nother vernacular, a whole nother side of commercial real estate. At the same time, you have self-storage, you have office, and just a host of different niches that you can really focus in when it comes to real estate. And the number one thing for each and every one of you all, and myself included, is finding your niche, finding what you want to focus on, because we can't do everything. We see it every day with going through life in general. It's like you can't do everything. It's just too many options, but you really need to focus on one option, get really, really good at it, become world class at it, become an expert at it, and dive in. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So for those that don't know me, real quick, Johnny Line, I'm a husband, father, lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. Been doing that 19 years. I started investing in real estate using my VA loan. After I bought my first property, started buying foreclosures as we moved around with the military for the rest of my career. And from there, just became completely infatuated with real estate and made it a passion and built a business around it. We started our fix and flip business in 2015, my wife and I, and just continued to scale up over the years, doing fix and flip renovations from Alexandria, Virginia to Birmingham, Alabama to Panama City, Florida. We bought our first apartment complex in Panama City in 2020. Since then, we bought 4 more complexes in the Montgomery, Alabama area, and wrote a book a few years ago, started coaching, helping people, and that's why we're here today, helping people change their lives through real estate investing. And that's what it's all about. And so tonight we're going to explore different property types. So the thing you need to ask yourself, if you can own any type of property, drop all the limiting beliefs that we got rid of from week one. We want to make sure we don't let any of those creep in. But if with any type of property you could, regardless of the cost or location, what would it be and why? I want you to write that down. Don't say it out loud right now, but I want you to kind of keep that in your hip pocket and think through it. Because at the end of the day, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Napoleon Hill, for those who haven't read the book Think and Grow Rich, you need to add it to your list. It is definitely a game changer and changing your thought process when it comes to what it is that you can achieve. So why does property types matter? The different properties equal different opportunities. We talked a little bit about that. There are so many options today in the world, and real estate is no different. You can go in, you can buy shares of real estate. When you think about crowdfunding or fractional ownership, kind of think of timeshares, where now you can buy a large building, or you can buy like a single Airbnb and they break it up in just to chunks, so where you can pay $5,000 or as little as $500 into one like super nice $1 million Airbnb in Houston, and you could be a fractional owner getting cash flow off your return from that. So there's like so many different opportunities out here, but you got to figure out what works for you. And so the thing is, number one, whatever you decide to do in real estate investing, it needs to align with your financial goals. You have to have financial goals. You have to have a roadmap on where you're going, because guess what? If you don't know where you're going, then guess what? Any path will get you there, and that's not good, because 9 times out of 10, you're probably not going to like the place that you end up. So you must have those financial goals written down. We talked about that last week. We're having the goal setting, having smart goals, and going through that process. As you guys can see, we're building each week. We started with the mindset, making sure that we had the belief that we could do whatever it is that we set out to do, and going through and setting those habits, setting the vision board, confirming the goals, writing them down, setting time on our schedule in order to implement, and now going through and understanding that how do we make the time to dive in on what it is that we're going to choose to do. And then risk. A lot of times we don't take into account risk, that we're just looking, I need a deal, I need a deal, I need a deal. But a lot of times as new investors, you don't really focus in on the risk tolerance and understanding the business plan and the risk associated with doing a certain type of project. One, especially if you have limited experience, if you have a lot of capital at risk, if you have a lot of investor capital at risk, but understanding also what is the risk profile of the contractors that you need to have to come and do this, the expertise. Do you have those in those areas? And so really just kind of focusing in on all these things will help you determine what type of properties you want to focus on. One of the things that I learned early on was me being virtual and doing deals for long distance. I wanted to make sure my fix and flip projects, that they were primarily cosmetic. To this date, I have only torn down one wall to open up a floor plan, and it was 100% necessary. And we've done dozens on top of dozens of deals, and we've only torn down one one wall for a floor plan to open it up, because we focused on entry level, first time home buyer type of housing. That's about 75% of the median home sales price in our area. And guess what? We look for just cosmetic flips. So we were going in, maybe update the roof, new HVAC and water heater, new flooring, paint, appliances, cabinets. A lot of times we can actually paint and keep the cabinets, they're in good shape, and spruce up the outside. And guess what? Maybe change out the windows, and now you're ready to go. And so you can get in and out with speed and focus on it. But you need to understand your risk tolerance and what you want to focus on, and that's going to drive your long-term success. So looking at some of the common property types, we got single-family homes. Kind of talked about that, but guess what? There's a ton of single-family homes, millions out there. They're easier to manage. They're high in demand because there's always families out here looking for a home. And we know right now with the current real estate market that there's a shortage of inventory, and demand is still, even despite interest rates being around 7%, demand is still there just because there's not enough inventory. The downside, lower cash flow than multifamily. Like once I found out what you could do with multifamily and how you could scale and the level deals, because I'll tell you, as you go through, you've done dozens and dozens of fix and flips, and the grind that you go through, and the inspection reports and dealing with the code enforcement and the permits with inspections and everything, that you find out that there's an easier way. If I could just do one deal and get 20 units under one roof, then all right there, now I don't have to go buy 20 single family properties in that area and go through 20 separate transactions. And so the thing is, you understand that it takes a lot more single family homes to build up to what you can accomplish with one multifamily property. And I always equate it to, if you're trying to go from Atlanta to Los Angeles, you can drive in a car and get there, which I would equate to single family homes. Or, if you want to get there via multifamily and get there faster, you can hop in an airplane and get there in a few hours. Because guess what? If you have a $5,000 passive income a month financial goal, then guess what? Doing one multifamily deal can get you there just like that, versus maybe having to do 10 to 12 deals in your market in order to achieve that amount of cash flow. So you just want to look at your goals, because we always point back to those goals and importance, because they're going to drive the strategy that you're going to look to implement. Multifamily properties, multiple income streams, and it is scalable. One of the great things, and we'll see if the new administration brings it back, but bonus depreciation, where you can pull forward 5, 15 year and 7.5 year depreciation. You can bring all that depreciation forward to the first year. So you can take 15 years worth of depreciation and bring it forward and to 1 year. And so that's the thing that you need to look at with how you can look at maximizing one, cash flow, but then also taxes, appreciation. Because guess what? With multifamily, we're not necessarily caring about what the house next door to us sold for, the house across the street, what they sold price per square foot, because you're literally looking at a business. You're looking at profit and loss statement, and you're looking at your income. How can you increase income? With usually the number one driver for that is increase in rent. So you can go in, improve units, and increase the market rent, or you can you can reduce expenses. So when you start looking at implementing RUBS, where if you're paying for all the water and sewer at the complex, maybe you can charge your residents a fee, $25, $30, where now they're carrying some of that. And so now you're looking and managing this business to understand how you can increase income, how you can reduce expenses, which is going to drive up that net operating income. And that's going to help you become successful with it. And I'm going to pause here for 1 second, make sure we don't have anyone waiting. There we go. Okay, no one's waiting. So on the cons, on the multifamily side, higher upfront costs. It takes a little bit more money to get into the deals. And one of the things that can be good and bad, but it allows you to grow your network, because we already know real estate investing is a team sport. And so now where you are deficient or where you don't have the skills, you can look to leverage other team members and being able to bolster you where it's not all on you when it comes to the responsibility with being able to execute the different functional areas of a project. So higher upfront costs, but guess what? We got people for that and more management. Great, because guess what? It's more management, but now you have enough income coming in where you can hire third-party management to manage the complex for you full time. So that's some of the pros and cons. So commercial properties, you can have longer leases, higher income potential with these properties. And this is one that DK, he's going to talk to us here in about 20 minutes to kind of go in with his experience with commercial properties. And guess what? They could be a little bit more complex to manage. When you start talking about the triple net leases and working with businesses that are leasing your space, that you have to have another skill set separate from the residential side with that. But there's opportunities on the commercial side as well, too. Airbnb, short-term rentals. Pros, high cash flow potential. You can get 3, 4x what you can get from a long-term lease with just one rental, but being able to rent your units out by the night or by the week or by the month to individuals or corporations. But the cons on it is market dependent. It takes a lot of effort. You're in the hospitality business where you're getting that text message in the middle of the night, like, hey, the Wi-Fi is not working. Or you know that, hey, it's a drip with the water. Or you said that we were going to have access to the golf cart, but the golf cart's not working. Or whatever it may be. That now you have to become a super host and have to be readily accessible in order to make sure that your residents have a great experience. And so the thing with that, a lot of the laws are changing as well too, with more scrutiny being put on Airbnbs, just because it takes up a lot of inventory that we've seen over the last few years. A lot of people have bought properties that normally a traditional homeowner would have bought for their primary residence, but individuals are buying and running the Airbnb business out of some of these homes, which now is making inventory go down and demand go up and pushing prices up in these areas. And so that's why you see a lot of different cities taking a different approach and prohibiting Airbnbs or limiting to certain areas of the city just where they can preserve and provide more housing in the local area. So that's something to take into account with short-term rentals. But overall, you have the buy and hold strategy, just where you can build long-term wealth. You have your fix and flips we talked a little bit about, where you have the fast profits, but it is higher risk. You have to go in, you have to execute a scope of work in order to make improvements. And then you got to make sure you're doing your math up front when analyzing. And that's one of the things that we really love to help our clients with, is zeroing in on the numbers, because it's all about math. It's all math. It's a math problem. And if you get the math wrong, that you're going to set yourself up for long-term pain. And so that's one of the things you want to definitely avoid. House hacking, living in one unit, rent the rest. And so that's one of a great way to build wealth for young people who have small families or don't have a family yet, where you can rent out by the bedroom, you can rent your basement out, you can rent your garage out. Heck, I was at a military influencer conference. This was last year. I met a veteran who was living in San Diego. She rented her pool out throughout the year, made $14,000 from just renting her pool out. You could rent a pool for a couple of hours a day, have a little party, get together, whatever it is. But there's so many ways to house hack and be able to offset your expenses that you have for your primary residence. The BRRRR method, where you buy, rehab, rent it out, refinance, and repeat. So instead of flipping the property, you buy it, you renovate it, but you turn it into a rental property and you refinance, because usually you're going to have short-term debt with the fix and flip. You're going to have a bridge loan, but you refinance it into a long-term mortgage, and now you pull out most of your equity, if not all of it, and then you repeat and find another property and do it again. And so these are kind of the top four strategies. And then number 5 being wholesaling, where you can fast profits with no ownership, where you can find great deals, get them under contract, and then you can assign the contract or assign your rights to buy that property at that price to another investor, and you're able to walk away and you make the spread in between it. So if you get a property under contract for $120,000, you know it's going to be worth $275,000, but it needs $50K worth of work. So you get it for $120,000, you may sell it to another investor for $150,000. And so when you get the $25,000 with the $30,000 difference with that. And so wholesaling is one where you can make good money as a wholesaler, but a lot of times what I've seen, they don't negotiate the best price, and there's not a lot of margin left for investors to buy the property at the prices that they're trying to charge. A lot of times, unfortunately, I see that everybody's trying to hit a home run with every deal that they put out there, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, you need to choose the strategy that's the best fit for you. Understanding your financial goals, how much time can I commit? What's my risk tolerance? And the thing changed, like where I'm at now in my real estate investing journey, my risk tolerance has definitely took a step back compared to where I was 10 years ago. And the thing is that you have to understand, and it can constantly evolve when you start looking at your risk tolerance, your financial goals, because at the end of the day, you still have to have a diversified portfolio and a diversified approach to real estate investing. And so that's one of the things that I have learned over the years is, hurricanes happen, insurance increases happen, different problems happen with the property, with getting crossways with the city and dealing with issues around that. And so the thing is, you want to look at, as you learn more and more about some of the challenges and issues that can come up with projects, how can you minimize your exposure to those problems? And so it's like, hey, doing certain properties or staying away from different neighborhoods or just staying for a certain type of asset class and being able to manage that. And so that's where getting the knowledge, coming to webinars just like we're doing tonight, getting the information where now you can be an informed investor and make the best decision for you. And you can ultimately match that property type and strategy that best aligns with your vision and where you're trying to go. And so this right here is kind of a fishbone diagram where you just kind of go through and understand it, starting with the goal in mind, but then understand, hey, do you want steady? Are you looking for steady income, quick cash flow? Do you want to build equity? Or, and then from there, breaking it down, where's your risk level? Are you looking for something that's low risk, moderate risk? Are you looking for like high cash flow potential? Or is it something where you want to be active, where you don't want to be passive, but you want to be an active investment? Or, are you looking for certain strategies that you can take on to reinvest it for growth? And so looking at the BRRRR method, where now you're just reinvesting the capital into another deal and you're moving on. And you just see kind of how you end up with the single family homes, the multifamily properties, short-term rentals, fix and flip, and the BRRRR method, with just the different attributes of these different investment strategies and how you can get there, and kind of all rolls back to your ultimate goal that you had, that you started with from the beginning. And I think, one, kind of level setting, you want to go through and aim and figure out. I always tell my clients when we sit down, it's like, what's your number? What's your passive income number? Because like you got to have a goal that you're building towards. And it can't be like, oh, yeah, I want to have $250,000 of passive income coming in every month. And I got zero right now. It's like, okay, let's set a realistic goal first. Let's look at maybe it's 2,000, maybe it's 5,000 and, passive income. And you want to do it through buying whole rental properties. Okay, now do you want to build wealth for retirement? Are you looking 15, 20 years down the road? Or it's like, hey, I need to have this done in 3 years. And so now both will have a different approach depending on your time horizon to get there. It's like, okay, well, boom, you got to get there in 3 years. Then, hey, we need to probably start looking at maybe doing some fix and flips to generate more income. And maybe for every 3 flips we do, we're going to keep one as a rental property. And we're going to do a BRRRR, refinance, and keep it. And then look at taking a profit and maybe buying traditional rentals or buy a multifamily after 2 years of doing fix and flips. And so now that's kind of, you go through a different strategy on how you can kind of bring these two together in order to serve you to get to where you want to be at like the 3 year mark or the 5 year mark. And so the big thing, I've seen this time and time again where people come and it's like, hey, I started in wholesale. And it's like, dude, you're working 2 jobs, you're putting in 12-hour days. There's no way you're going to have time to wholesale. And so the thing is, like, you have to be honest with yourself and understand how much time can you realistically dedicate to managing your investments and investing in real estate. Because the last thing that you want to do is start in some strategy that's misaligned with you. And then next, 90 days later, you're burned out because you had a strategy that wasn't set up for you. You weren't set up for success. And so now you want to look at, hey, maybe you need to just look at single family rentals or long-term leases that don't have a large amount of drag on your time. Or you could be a passive investor, and look at some of the short-term rentals, fix and flip projects. You can make it happen. I had a full-time W-2 job for the last decade and building up my portfolio part-time with leveraging individuals on my team, making sure that I had the right people. But it's doable, but you got to have the right strategy and you have the right systems and people on your team in order to make it happen. And at the end of the day, you got to figure out, hey, do you want to be hands-on, hands-off? With me, I never demoed, picked up a hammer, done any of that stuff because I always wanted to set it up in a way where I didn't have to be hands-on. I did 6 months of management in my first apartment in 2020. I self-managed for 6 months during COVID before our PCS that moved out of the area, just because I wanted to get that experience so I could be a better manager when I buy my other apartment buildings. And that's definitely worked out. That 6 months was worth its weight in gold with being able to manage the 4 other complexes that we bought since then. And so just understanding where you want to be hands-on and why it's going to benefit you long-term with your goal. Because if it's not, then you probably need to take a step back and understand what's the best strategy for you. And then just going through and just being able, because I always say, for some individuals like, hey, I want to self-manage. You're like, okay, for how long? Because you managing, you're doing a task. If you're paying your property management 10%, your rent's $1,500, you're doing $150 a month job to save $150 when you could be out here finding your next property where you can have $35,000-$40,000 of equity or profit when you do a fix and flip. So your time is more well spent finding that next project and operating at the strategic level instead at the tactical level, doing the day-to-day property management where you're answering the phone and going to change toilets and setting up things. So you just got to find that good balance. Understanding your risk tolerance, we talked about there. What are you comfortable with? Because at the end of the day, you need to be in investing in things that you can sleep at night. The last thing you want to do is invest in real estate and you're sweating. You're always looking. I know people that invest in the stock market. They got to look at it every day on their lunch break, on their smoke break. They're looking at it all the time. The thing is that you want to be able to invest and not let it. You want to be comfortable with your investment. And so understanding, hey, are you a low risk investor? Are you looking for something moderate risk? Or are you looking for something more high risk with higher returns that's going to fit your appetite? So consider your starting point, your budget, how much capital you got to invest. You got your savings, you got your retirement accounts that you can leverage. You got, business credit cards out here that you can leverage as well too. I started my personal line of credit and personal credit cards. At seed capital with doing our budget. So you want to look at the different opportunities. And of course, we got raising private capital. I'm in the process right now raising $750,000 for our Montgomery portfolio. We're about to refinance and we're going to go to the second phase of renovations. And so we're bringing on 20% equity partners, and we're going to raise 750,000 for that. And so you always got a pool of investor capital that you can raise and give other people an opportunity to partner with you in deals. They can get the tax write-offs that come with owning real estate and the monthly cash flow, and then just the long-term appreciation. And so you always want to look at all your resources you have at your disposal, where now you can bring in and give opportunities to other people, and you can build wealth at the same time. It's a win-win. And then understanding what is your skill set, what is the experience, the renovations that you have, experience with management or deal analysis. Find what you're good at, and partner for some of those other weaknesses that you may have. And so then finally, just match the property type with the strategy. So if you're on the single family side, the multifamily side, you can leverage a lot. You can flip multifamily. You can house hack. We had a client that just bought a 4-unit, 100% owner, 100% financing with his VA loan, over $1 million 4-unit property. He's living in 1 unit. The other 3 units are rented out. Over $2,000 a month income coming in for each unit. And he's house hacking. And so he'll move out, rent out his unit after 1 year and do that. And so there's different strategies that you use with single family or the traditional multifamily, or get into the larger apartment complexes when you start thinking about the larger multifamily properties. The commercial properties that we have here, as well as we talked a little bit about the short-term rentals. But the thing is, think about scale. Like, a lot of times people take for granted what they can do and how fast they can make progress and get things started. So give a true assessment of where you are, but don't be afraid to step out there and put a plan together. So the week 3 action steps before I bring on DK to talk a little bit about commercial properties. Research at least 2 property types. So single family, multifamily, Airbnb, wholesaling. But then also look at the pros and cons, and then figure out, hey, what's the top investment strategy for you, and share that in the community so we can check that out. And if you can need feedback, just ask. And then always, I know Faye posted today the leaderboard, so make sure you guys kind of look at the different the points, achievement points that we're doing, and we're gonna have some cool prizes at the end of the 8 weeks for those that's participating with that. And with that, we're gonna let DK come online. I'm gonna pause here for
You are muted. We can't hear you.
Yep, DK's. I'm sending him the link. Here we go. All right. Yep. So DK is gonna jump in. I had to send him the updated link. So yeah, so I definitely want to hear everyone's strategy, what they're thinking in regards to just your personal strategy, because it's gonna be different for everyone. We're all starting from different vantage points in life, where we are. We all have different goals, reasons for why we want to invest in real estate, and why we want to do what we want to do. So it's really just having that honest assessment with yourself, and and just figuring out what the plan is, what the roadmap is, and then boom, let's start executing those weekly items when we start talking about the goal, with what we need to be doing, the actions and the activities. And we're going to start talking. I know next week we're going to talk about financing deals and bringing the money into the deal. Because I know money and the capital is always like one of the top challenges and concerns that new investors have. So we're going to definitely help with removing those roadblocks. So with that, DK, you online?
It's not yet in.
Okay, he may be changing, taking the text message from to his computer. Faye, you got anything while we wait for DK to log in?
Yep. So you guys want to pick like if you prefer 1 hour on demand multifamily training or a one-on-one strategy session. I think DK is here now. One-on-one strategy session with you guys. So this is no sales pitch here, guys. So we're just gonna help you identify where you're at right now, make an assessment, where you can, get started and everything. And what are the actions that you can take right now based on your current situation. So we're just, here to help. I'll be sending you guys, for those who pick multifamily on demand, I'll be sending you guys a link to a free training, an hour free training. And for the one-on-one session, you guys, I'll send you the link to our calendar so you can book a session with us.
Sweet. All right, I see DK here. Let him share his screen, Faye, and we can get rolling. So DK's gonna come. He has a wealth of experience from house hacking.
Yeah.
Bought his first commercial property, and now he's got, I think, 26 units under contract that he's working right now. So busy man, Navy vet, and crushing it. Got his full-time job, but extremely passionate about real estate and serious about building wealth. And so I definitely wanted to bring him on and kind of share a little bit of his journey to inspire and motivate you guys. So with that, DK, the floor is yours, brother.
Hey, thank you so much for that, Johnny. Nice warm introduction. Nice to meet you all. Let me quickly share my screen.
By the way, guys, DK is part of REI Genius, so let's go.
All right. Let me know you guys can see my screen.
Yep.
All right, so I'll start from where I'm at. All right, so I'm talking today about commercial real estate investing made accessible. Most people think of commercial real estate and think apartment buildings, which yes, that's one of the asset classes within commercial real estate. Today's focus will be about the other types, mainly office and retail. That's what I specialize in. But we'll make a parallel to multifamily or apartment investing. And so we'll kind of talk through that. My company is Akamai Property Group. That's what I go by for my investing company. All right, so I just kind of want to talk through kind of at a high level, what this is all about. So really just bridging the gap of commercial real estate investing, making it accessible and providing that opportunity to others. I think I had this common misconception myself when I thought of commercial real estate, was that really only the big players do this, those that have tons of capital. You think like wealth management groups, private equity, those are the ones that are doing commercial real estate. That's what I think, myself and maybe some others that are on this call might have that perception. When I started on this journey 3 years ago, I realized that everyday people, just like you and I, are doing commercial real estate deals. One of my mentors started off doing residential about 10 years ago, and amassed a pretty good portfolio doing that, and then realized that as he kind of grew his portfolio, so did all the time and energy spent in managing all of that. And so he found a way to create more of a passive portfolio by buying commercial properties. He called it the catapult strategy. So when my mentor explained that to me, I realized that, we can buy commercial real estate and just look at all the buildings around you. You probably go to a pharmacy that's nearby you. You go to an eye doctor. All of those are buildings that, everyday people can get into. So we'll kind of jump into that in a little bit. All right, so quick agenda today. I'm going to kind of breeze through the first couple bullets because the meat of it is the multifamily case study that I have and a non-multifamily case study to just kind of show you a little bit of the nuances between them. So the initial stuff, I'll kind of just talk through it. If you want more information, I can happily send the slides to you guys. You can hop on a call with me separately. So my mission statement, so I'm from Hawaii, born and raised. I don't think I mentioned that. And so I'm deeply rooted in my Hawaiian culture and heritage. So I have this saying for my company, A'ohe Hana Nui Ka Alui Ia. And this means no task is too big when done together. And this is really at the core of being in business and being in real estate. If you want to go alone, you're gonna move slowly, because you're just relying on yourself. But if you want to conquer, really challenging, really big things, then you go with other people. Essentially, you build a tribe around you, and that's really at the crux of what I want to build upon in my company, my Property Group. And because I invest out of state, I'm located here in Northern Virginia. I work a full-time day job in a skiff at the same place that Johnny works at. And so it's really difficult for me to have to do everything myself if I'm locked in a building, from 8 in the morning till 4, 5, 6 p.m. With no access to the outside world. So I spent a better part of my first year in investing, just building a team out there, just making relationships with other real estate agents, brokers, commercial lenders, with property managers, contractors, and just interviewing them and really ensuring I had a good tribe that we're all figuring out our piece to the puzzle to take down these kind of properties. And to go along with that, I'm going to back out of my slide real quick. Just wanted to, can you guys see this? I just wanted to kind of highlight, I have a link tree to kind of give background to a lot of stuff. If you want me to drop this in the chat, I can. Faye could probably just drop it in for me. So my background is I grew up in foster care for about 10 years of my childhood. And for many different reasons that I entered foster care. And I didn't think that I would have the opportunities that I had. But because over time, as I kind of overcame some of those initial challenges, I realized I wanted to find a way to give back. So I'm not in real estate just to make money for money's sake. I think as many of you as you know, you're on this call with intention that you need to have a bigger reason than just yourself or just your immediate family around you. So my ultimate reason to achieve financial freedom through real estate is to build a mentorship program to help other disadvantaged youth, those that are aging out of the foster care system, to learn about financial literacy, to learn about financial freedom, learning how to invest in real estate, learning how to build their own business, as well as learning about health and fitness. So those are my main drivers into why I started on this journey 3 years ago. Really, the thought process came back even before the pandemic, just seeing family members, my own wife lose their jobs, and seeing my own parents, who've raised over 50 children through the foster care system, kind of struggle financially in their golden years. So I just kind of share that. So I do come from a background where it wasn't easy. I didn't have it handed to me. I really worked hard throughout my entire life, and put myself through college, joined the military, but realized I wanted something further than just my service to my country through military service. And so real estate became that vehicle for me to see that I can take control of my financial future, and then serve my community at large and the investors that I work with. So to go with the second mission, I'm dedicated to serving our community and our investors. So I look at the commercial properties I'm buying not merely as a financial transaction, but I look at it as how can we transform the communities that we are in? So if these buildings are dilapidated, businesses are leaving the area, because of the condition they're in, how can we restore that how can we attract more businesses and other local companies to that area and really create a connected community. So that's really like at the crux, like what I strive to do in all of the transactions, while also still prioritizing returns to the investors. All right, so quickly, my team, like I said, I'm not alone. You got myself here, but if all these people that I work with, my broker for my real estate transactions, my lending broker, contractors, property management companies. I'm also the asset manager, and the LP could be you, right? So none of this is possible without also having limited partners or private money lenders or capital raisers that help make these deals happen. Just quickly for those that aren't as familiar with commercial real estate or investing in like larger multifamily outside of 2 to 4 unit, the complexity kind of scales a little bit as Johnny could probably tell you. So the main two roles when I kind of look at the roles and responsibility for the team, you have the acquisition phase and the ownership phase. So the acquisition phase, as it pertains to me and the team that I work with, so we're ensuring that we get to a successful closing. So each of the team members that I work with, we're looking at all phases of what it takes, to purchase the property, based on the agreement that we make, the purchase contract. And we go through an extensive due diligence process. It really just ranges based on the property. It could be 60 days, could be 90 days. It really depends. My current project right now has a 60-day close with a 30-day due diligence process. And so that allows me and my team to look at all the financial documents, to take our physical inspections, looking at the conditions of the properties, looking and reviewing all the rental leases, calculating the accurate income and expenses, etc. Right? So there's a lot that kind of goes in just to the acquisition phase. But going forward, the long term is that ownership phase, right? So how are we going to execute on that business plan, that we talk to our limited partners about, right? So if I say I'm going to buy this commercial property, I'm going to do a hold for 5 years, I'm going to, turn these units, add tenants in, increase the lease times, etc. The ownership phase is where we're executing on that, and we are making sure we're still hitting those returns for our passive investors. Those are really the two key points I want to make here. The next part is really just saying, like, here are a list of some responsibilities as it pertains to a GP or a managing member or asset management. It really depends. The terms are analogous to each other. And this pertains to anyone that you may come across in terms of like if they have a syndication that they're going through, and you're hearing about it. These are just things to highlight that you should expect that they're doing. And if not, there's probably some red flags you should waive here. So, bullet point on the right. So underwriting, right? We're negotiating the purchase of the property. You're doing risk management, providing investor reporting, etc. Right? So there's those are not all inclusive. There's definitely a lot more that goes about it, but this is more so to understand some of the common responsibilities for the asset manager. And then for you as the limited partner, or those that want to go down that path to make commercial investing accessible for themselves, if you don't want to do the work that was on the previous slide, really it comes down to, one, you should be educated into the asset class that you're going to invest in. It's not expected to be an expert in it, but to have a general understanding, to ask educated questions, and then to be able to confidently say yes, that you're going to invest in said property and understand the risks involved with it. And so, a couple key action items is, understanding the investment opportunity, providing that capital commitment. So for a lot of people, that might just be what we call a commitment letter to say, I will be investing in said investment opportunity, set principal amount, and then, whatever terms that you talk about with the investment group. Reviewing documentation as we update it, based on like property reports, receiving distributions. So the fun part is, once the property is acquired, you kind of just sit and collect checks, or direct deposits, because we're in the 21st century. And so, from there on, for the length of the time that your money is held, you're just receiving passive returns, and you're receiving, some regular updates on how that property is doing. And then when the timeline comes up or sooner, you'll receive, all your capital back and some upside. So that's pretty passive for those that want to go down that route and not have to deal with, everything else that it takes to acquire this kind of property. All right. And so I just wanted to talk about quickly, and how commercial real estate is just one of those options that you can invest in to diversify your portfolio. So we have a couple snapshots here to highlight, trends within different asset classes, and what those returns generally look like. Understanding that then don't focus too much on like the percentage numbers here, because it does change, from day to day, month to month, year to year. But it's generally showing that commercial real estate, in comparison to some of these other asset classes, is fairly comparable, and it's very competitive. And commercial real estate, or real estate in general, has another advantage in that what is shown here, this 9.5%, really only hits on one wealth building quadrant in all the ways you can make money in real estate. And really, this is only looking at the equity or appreciation. But in real estate, you have, three other ways that you make your returns. You have cash flow, which a lot of these other options may not have that. Like stock market investing, you could argue and say, well, I have dividends. Unless you're investing millions of dollars, your dividends are not going to make you financially free. I'll tell you that much. Even if you have $100,000, it's not gonna make a big dent on your monthly income. But real estate can, and you can control that. You can control your income and expenses. So you have cash flow, you have equity or appreciation. The biggest, I think, key here is you have debt pay down by your tenants. And I'll get into it a little later. In commercial real estate, you could have leases that are 5, 10, 15, 20 years long. And all that debt pay down is being paid by those tenants that are extremely passive. And so that's a huge advantage when it comes to real estate investing. And the last one is your tax savings, just by investing in real estate. And so those three other factors are not accounted for in this 9.5% return that is shown over the past 20 years. Just a quick plug, if you're interested, I have a free ebook that I wrote up that compares a century of investing between the stock market and real estate. It's a free ebook that I give out to those that kind of want to dig a little deeper and kind of look at the historical trends. So feel free, you can scan the QR code or go to the website. But I can also send these out. All right. So unlike investing in a stock or bonds or REIT, the biggest advantage that you have when it comes to investing in something like commercial real estate is that you have control of that. So let's say you invested in Apple like 30 years ago when it was like super, super low. And your portfolio has grown a lot in Apple. But how much control do you have on what Apple's going to do going forward? I would argue you probably have no control, right? Even if you own the 1% of the stock. But when it comes to real estate investing, and especially if you're a limited partner or a GP on a deal, you have a lot more say in what you're investing in. And you know exactly where your money's going. Because one of the key takeaways is that you are doing a lot of vetting up front and you know exactly who is managing that deal. And so you are able to work more directly with that investment. Whereas, you know, stocks, bonds, you're invested in it, you're diversified, but you don't have that control. So I'm not here to say that it's not great to invest in stocks and bonds. Don't get me wrong. I have that too. I have Roth IRA and TSP and all that. And so what I like to say is it's like to have a nice, healthy, balanced diet, right? If I make the comparison, my mentor makes this all the time at the Cash Flow Breakfast Club, another group I'm part of. And it's the comparison of, you know, you have apples and you have mustard. They're both edible, but you would like to have more of one than the other, right? I would argue that your doctor would probably tell you that it's probably better to have more apples than mustard in your diet. And so that's the way I view these asset classes like real estate, because you have a little bit more of that control and you know exactly where your money is going. And there's really no questions around it, right? You know who you're working with and you know what you're investing in. So it's investing in what you know and what you can control. So with all that initial stuff out of the way, I'm gonna quickly pause for questions if there are any questions. If not, I'll continue into some case studies, really the meat of today's presentation. I can also save time towards the end to talk about what I'm currently doing, but I meant to make the beginning part of this presentation more educational.
Yeah, hey Darius, Chris here. Just wanted to quickly ask, for folks looking at, this side of course, the commercial side, if you will, as newer investors, right? Folks that are green, right? Would you recommend newer investors start out as a limited partner in order to grow and learn and not make mistakes? Or would you say, hey, get into the thick of things and, become a partner, if you will, and learn the right. I don't know. That I'm kind of just asking, I guess.
No, Chris, I appreciate that question. I think that is a very well thought out question, and it's a very common question as well. Because I asked the same question to my mentor 3 years ago. So some context, I started off wanting to get into real estate, specifically out of state, because I'm from Hawaii, and I moved to the DMV, where it's also another expensive market. And for long-term rentals, it is not a cash flow market, similar to Hawaii. And so going in, I knew that I wanted to invest in cash flow, specifically for financial freedom. And so I reached out to friends of mine, if they knew people that were investing out of state in cash flowing markets. And so I got linked up with the out of state mastermind group and started off on learning the BRRRR strategy for residential 1 to 4 unit properties. So I started off that path knowing that eventually I wanted to pivot to commercial real estate because my goal over time is to build a passive portfolio. So I'm not here to say that commercial real estate will make you the most money. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But if your goal specifically over time is to create a passive portfolio, then commercial real estate is one of those options that allows you to do that, specifically in how you manage it and the terms that you can have for your leases. And so to get at your question, I asked this question as well 3 years ago. And I told my mentor, I was like, I want to get in commercial real estate, but I'm gonna take my time. Let me learn how to do residential, let me get a property under contract and start managing that, etc. But as I learned the process in analyzing properties through the BRRRR strategy for residential, I realized that this could also be applied to commercial real estate. And you just change your perspective and how you're looking at it. It's a little bit more numbers based than just looking at, what rehabs need to be done to raise the property value based on who sold their house down the street. And so I actually just did a full pivot and jumped straight into commercial. And I actually learned way more uh, learning how to do my own deal than if I were to jump on someone else's. Now, I'm not here to say that everyone should do that. but it's more so weighing, what you ultimately want to work towards in the future. So just understanding what your roadmap looks like towards your financial freedom path, and just assessing from there. But what helped me feel comfortable to make that jump was, again, focusing on building that team around me, knowing that I don't have all the answers, but I know what to ask and I know who to turn to get those answers done. Because I could do all the reading in the world. I mean, not to say I went in this blind. I did a lot of reading on this. I did a lot of research to understand how to run numbers. Um, and that just allowed me to have educational conversations with my real estate broker, with my lender, etc. So that allowed me to just take action and take action quickly. Yeah, good question. Hopefully that answered it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I saw another hand up.
That was me. I was wondering if you could explain further why you don't consider that investment a long-term cash flow market.
Why I don't consider like the DMV, like DC, Maryland, Virginia?
And did you also say Hawaii?
Yes.
Yes.
So when people talk about a cash flow market, they are mainly talking in terms of long-term rentals. I'm not here to talk about short-term rentals or mid-term rentals, because again, the goal for me and others I know is passive, quote unquote, passive investing. And so what that means is it's not to say that there's no work up front. There's certainly a lot of work up front to stabilize the asset. But over the long run, as you have long-term tenants, that investment becomes much more passive. And so it is a cash flow market if your long-term rents are able to be sustained based on the price points of those properties in your market. And so in Hawaii, because I'm from there, the average property out there costs well over 5 or 600K, but rents are probably at 3K, which is, if you do the 1% rule, that's 0.5. That is not a cash flow market. It is a flip market just because the appreciation goes up very quickly in Hawaii, and so does it here in the immediate DMV. And so these markets don't sustain at a macro level long-term investing. Not to say that you can't in any of those specific markets. You might have some niche areas based on, the amount you're buying the property for. But historically, these markets are not cash flow markets.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So jumping into a quick case study. And I believe I looked at this property personally with my team.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
I also got another question. So I think for the main group or for the main team, what is the best approach for real estate or like acquisition? I'm talking about like in essence of you guys also buy land and build a multifamily a building, or you just buy already built buildings?
So for me specifically, I buy buildings that exist. It is a different investment strategy to do what's called ground up construction. That's where you're buying land and then developing on it. That's an entirely different investment strategy that people do. So I would say I'm never gonna say ever that there's one best strategy to rule them all, because really it's not. It really depends on what your specific goals are, as it pertains to real estate, but ultimately as it pertains to what your vision is, for financial freedom. Like, what do you want to do? What do you imagine your life to be when you're financially free? What does that timeline look like? That should inform your investment strategy. I don't like when people look at what's happening on social media, what's cool, like, oh, multifamily is super cool, buying 100-unit apartment buildings, but does that really fit with what your long-term goals are? So you should look at it from that standpoint.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So just a quick synopsis on this multifamily case study. This is actually a real property that was analyzed by my team. And this is kind of the process that my team will go through before they send the property to me. So for reference, the reason why it's good to have a great team is that my real estate broker does not just send me the MLS listings, right? Like the automated email campaign that you get. My team does not do that. They specifically will look at my criteria, my buy box, and will look at the properties themselves, run their scenarios on it before they send it to me. Because that just makes it a little easier for me to kind of go through a specific set of properties and then decide whether or not I want to analyze it further and then put an offer out. So this property is a 8-unit. It's a package of 2 duplexes and 1 fourplex, and it's at the 1% investor rule. It's ready to go. And there's 2 vacant units, so you have a little bit of value add opportunity. So at the surface level, you might look at this and be like, oh, this sounds like a great opportunity. So let's dive further. All right, this might be a little bit of an eye chart, understands, but I wanted to highlight some key points here. So here, I just wanted to highlight that the areas that I'm looking at when I get something like this from my team is I am looking at what is called the NOI, which is net operating income. Net operating income is just your expenses or your income minus your expenses. If you had to break it down in very simple terms, that's really all it is. And also another key point to look at is the comparison of what the seller is reporting versus what the actual expenses are, or the actual income and the actual expenses are. So it's a key thing when you're looking at what like a listing agent post. They'll have like this fancy looking offering memorandum. They'll have all like these formulas that they're showing on there, and like what the numbers could look like. But as an investor, I care about what's happening today. What are the actual numbers? And so my team will help me break that down and do that comparison. So the NOI is a key area that I look at. Of course, I look at the purchase price to see, all right, based on their purchase price, and based on what the actual income is, what is this property actually reasonably going to be sold at? And then I will, work with my lender to see like, what are like common terms that I can get based on, today's rates and kind of plug those in. And so you can see that, based on the area at the top, if I were to offer at asking, you can see that my DCR, debt coverage ratio, is just a ratio of the income of the property and the debt that you have on the property. So the DCR here is less than 1, which for lenders, they might not lend on that because there's too much risk for them in order to cover the debt. And so now when I come down to the bottom, again, you can see that it has the same NOI for as it is on the top. And so what we're doing here to change the scenario is saying I'm going to offer, at a different price that is analogous to what's actually being generated in income. Because, I'm running the numbers here based on 55,000 net operating income by 63,000 net operating income. And in the world of commercial real estate, we have this term we use called the cap rate. I'm not going to go into detail of how to explain that, but essentially cap rate is just a comparison between 2 similar asset classes. And it's just to say if you had 2 office buildings of similar size, of a similar tenant makeup, what would one go for if one was 50% vacant versus one that's 80% occupied? And so it shows you which investment is more risky. The higher the cap rate, the more risky, but the more opportunity there is to add value. The lower the cap rate, the more stable it is, the less risky it is, but the higher the price point is going to be. Because there's a relationship between purchase price, the cap rate, and the NOI. So those 3 numbers is what helps inform me whether or not the deal would be profitable, whether or not the debt coverage ratio is something that I can work with my lender to get financing for this property. And so now we can see that if we're offering on this property at this 616K, that my debt coverage ratio is about 1.3, which is what a lender will definitely lend their money on. And we can see now that based on this purchase price, the cap rate that I'd be purchasing this at shows that this property is slightly higher risk, because there's some vacancy for the property, based on where that net operating income is coming in at. But what we want to highlight here is that the bottom is more of a ideal scenario from the investor's point of view, but for the sellers in a multifamily scenario, you'll find that there are there's a lot of competition when it comes to some of these multifamily assets. You might not be especially in like the recent markets, the sellers had a little bit more control of the market, and so a lot of the time, you'd be selling these properties close to the asking price. And so what happens if you're selling this at the asking price when your income doesn't even cover your debt, right? And so, you look at the right side of the screen, and you can see for those that were coming in and buying multifamily properties because they saw all the trends that were happening on social media, buying them at asking, not having the rents able to cover their debt, buying them when the debt was the interest was much lower, but having them on a variable loan with balloon payments in a shortened time frame, thinking that they could just change their rent prices and whatnot to kind of add value to the property. Well, what happened in the recent 5 to 10 years is that a lot of these properties went underwater because as interest rates rose, they weren't able to do a cash out refinance to pull their capital back out because they couldn't cover the debt they already had on the property. And so that was a huge risk exposure for a lot of these newer asset managers in the multifamily space. And it goes to show that multifamily is not as easy as a lot of people claim to be. Most of the time, and Johnny and others that have a lot of multifamily experience can speak up and say otherwise. But a lot of times we see that these properties will end up selling at or very close to cost, right? Even though when you're running your numbers, it does not make sense to do so from an investment standpoint. But the reality is that most of these will sell at asking price. And so, thinking that, we're going to be able to manage this asset differently, we're going to add value by raising rents. Well, if you're in an area where there's a rent raise like control, like there's a cap to that, you might not be able to sustain that cost over the long run in order to continue to add value. So the key point here is if you're in this situation where you're buying these properties at or near the asking price, what's happening is you're buying the future value of this property, and you don't have that value add opportunity. Whereas if you're buying them under market value, if you're able to, then you have that kind of equity just built in, and you can force it through the management of that property. Does that make sense there? Any questions on this area?
No, used to where you shot down everybody on the line.
Yep,
Oh,
no
what was that?
questions.
No questions? Okay, cool.
I do have a question.
Absolutely.
If you weren't restricted by the lender, with the debt service coverage ratio, are there any circumstances in which you would buy at the asking, knowing that it's not going to make a profit from the beginning, but when you can raise the rents, it would?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it would be a case by case scenario. There's really no blanket answer for that. Because I would say I have seen scenarios that are similar to this one where it may make sense um to understand you're going to be taking the loss for X amount of time. You just have to kind of build that into your risk tolerance and build that into your numbers. And make sure you explain that to your investors if you have investors coming on to this, to show at what point you start to become profitable and what your exit strategy is going to be, and to have more than one exit strategy. Um, so if your original exit strategy is going to be, to hold this property and then sell it at the end of 5 years, um, you might want to have a backup strategy of what does it look like to hold this property past 5 years and potentially have to, do a refinance or just buy the property outright in cash, etc. So you want to have, especially when it comes to these larger acquisitions, you want to have um, multiple exit strategies or variations of your strategy. So in some cases, it may make sense. Um, let me just go back real quick to where that number was. In some cases, it might make sense. However, it really depends on who your lender is going to be, because they might have stipulations where they can't lend under 1.0 DSCR or DCR, both analogous.
Okay.
I will also point out that this number that's shown, this ratio here, does not account for all the expenses that you incur as an investor. This is only looking at the property income and expenses. So that's something else to kind of look out for, is that you have some other costs as an investor that's not reflected here, if that makes sense.
It does, like accounting, returns, and all that.
Exactly. So
good
you have to
stuff.
look at
Right.
it holistically when it comes to these transactions.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
and I'll add on to that one too, DK, that and like in this case, and what we're seeing now with on the multifamily side with properties now, the interest rates have gone up a lot compared to where buyers initially underwrote their deals at. Then now you're having to bring more money to refinances and actually bring capital in versus cash out refinances. And so, like in this case, you could buy it for that price, but the lender is only going to lend a certain amount. And so it just means that you're going to have to bring more cash to closing in order to buy it at
Yeah.
that price. And sometimes you'll see individuals that may have like a 1031 exchange where they're on the clock and they have to find an asset that they have to buy with those proceeds that they have in the 1031 exchange. And so a lot of times you end up, if there's not a lot of inventory, you end up having to take a deal that you probably wouldn't necessarily take, but you have to deploy, the 300,000-400,000. And so you will have to pay for a deal like this, or, if they're not willing to negotiate, just because you have to place your money by asset with it by a certain time period, or you have to pay the taxes on the money. So it's some
I'm
different nuances.
so glad Johnny brought that up. I just had a meetup last night that I led, and one of our main topics was the 1031 exchange. And I've done one myself. And what we call that is, and when you see a deal like this and you see it go under contract, when you're like, wait, it went under contract at asking, what Johnny just described is a reality. A lot of the times I got beat out in these kind of deals because people were coming in at asking on these deals that you're like, this is not profitable. Like for even years, like 3, 4, 5 years, this deal is not profitable. And we call that dumb money, right? They have money they have to place in a certain time, and they don't care. They're going to take that loss because they'd rather take that loss than pay the taxes on, that large equity gain that they have of 500K, 800K, or whatever it may be. And so you'll find yourself in these scenarios where you're just getting beat out every time you put offers. And I would say just continue hitting, right? Continue to get at bat, keep putting those offers in, because it just makes you better at recognizing the situations, running your numbers, right? And just understand that what I'm showing you here, this is just like a 1 year projection. right? You have to be looking at what's happening in year 3, 4, 5, year 10, right? And see, what is ideal for this property to be operating at, and build that into your business plan and see how you can get to that faster. So I just wanted to put that plug out there too. All right, so I'm gonna just go ahead. All right, so now I wanted to talk non-multifamily, right? So this is kind of my bread and butter. I focus on retail, office, and industrial flex space. And this specific example is a retail property. Again, it's a real property. It does exist out in Kansas City. This is a retail property. It's about 6,600 square feet, 1.2 million. And it has a gym in here if you guys recognize Anytime Fitness. Our broker was able to negotiate this contract at under asking, so just over $1 million, with a 7-year triple net lease. Johnny's probably looking at that and smiling. For those that don't know what a triple net lease is, I'll kind of briefly explain it. So triple net lease has the same things that a normal lease does in terms of, like, for those that are familiar with just renting an apartment. You have your tenant will pay their normal rent, and they might have like some normal expenses, like they might be in charge of utilities, and maybe trash fees, or some other type of services, right? So that's kind of just like a base normal lease. A triple net lease has all of those same things, but oh, by the way, they are paying for your property taxes, they are paying for your property insurance, they are paying for, all the common area maintenance, if there needs to be snow removal or lawn, landscaping, all that kind of stuff. That is on their dime. For you as the owner, you're responsible for the capital expenditures. So the roof, the foundation, maybe the parking lot, but that can also be negotiated as well. Everything can be negotiated in commercial real estate. You can even build in automatically your rent escalations, right? So in this case, 3%. Over 7 years, 3% increase every year for 7 years, with all the other expenses paid by the tenant. Right? So the buyer is not responsible for all of these things that I just talked about here: property expenses, taxes, insurance, right? That blew my mind. I was like, wow, talk about a passive investment once you stabilize it. And we negotiated to have the property advertised before we even got it under contract. So I could already get a tenant to occupy that space before the deal closes. And we also have this thing in commercial real estate where if the current tenant, let's say that they're one of the tenants of the building, but they're also like the seller, we can do what's called a seller leaseback, where if we can't get the vacancy filled prior to closing, they will pay you the rent for that property until you get it leased up, or you can negotiate the amount of time. It could be 1 year, it could be 2 years of rental payments from the seller until that place is occupied. And so that's pretty powerful, right? I don't know if that didn't throw off some light bulbs in your head, like maybe you're listening to the wrong presentation, because that absolutely blew my mind, the fact that you can do that in commercial real estate. And so for this specific scenario, so like real scenario, one of the other investors I know in my group, they did get a triple net lease on this property prior to closing, and all the lease guarantors in place, which just means that if they were to breach their contract at year 5, they are still liable for those last 2 years of rent. So in this specific scenario, or in non-multifamily, like commercial real estate asset classes in general, we focus on having long-term in-place relationships with these tenants, and specifically their business to business, because unlike other asset classes, multifamily, your tenants are businesses, right? Just think of like your local grocery store, or your local law office, or your doctor's office. Like, all of those are businesses, and these are the ones that are occupying your units. And a lot of the times, these business owners, like if they have something wrong in their unit, like they have a leaking pipe, they'll just go call up their maintenance guy, go get it fixed, call up the property manager, like, hey, this thing happened. We took care of it. Just want to let you know. Like it's, they understand they're business owners themselves, and so they'll take care of things. And because they're businesses, we really can talk through the income and expenses throughout the ownership of this. So when you look at this scenario here in year one of cash flow for this retail property is the same as the multifamily property, but you have that built-in performance, and it's predictable over the 7-year term that was laid out. You know exactly what income is coming in, you know exactly where your expenses are, you know exactly what your rental increases are going to be for the next 7 years. You don't have to worry about your rent declining or any of that. And so you can see how this property is going to perform over those years. And so what you're really going to be managing from there is making sure that you take care of your exterior building maintenance, make sure the roof is doing okay, make sure the foundation, parking lot, et cetera, is taken care of. But outside of that, I mean, everything else is fairly passive once you get this lease in place. So I know I went through this slide kind of quickly, but does anyone have any questions on this? All right, I will preface and say I'm not saying that commercial real estate like office retail is better than multifamily. I'm merely just highlighting here the amount of negotiating power you have here, the amount of flexibility you have in commercial real estate, and really just the amount that you can negotiate in the leases as compared to just residential. So that's mainly what this is highlighting as well. So there are pros and cons, right? There's risks and everything. And the biggest, I want to say, misleading factor when it comes to people hearing about office, they're like, oh, isn't office risky? Is it hard to get financing? We hear all these things in the news. And so this is a lesson on macroeconomics versus microeconomics. So a lot of the times what you're hearing in the news about office is these large corporations like Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies that have these giant office buildings that are probably greater than 100,000, 500,000 square feet that they're suffering vacancies. But when you look at your local offices that have doctors in them, that have pharmacies there, these specific office types are not affected by the macroeconomics that's happening. And so again, going back to why it's good to have a great team is that my team in my little microeconomy is very in tune with what is going on. And we understand the trends in the economy, what jobs sectors are coming in that are leaving, et cetera, and we adjust with that based on our strategy. And so we understand that there is a large nationwide amount of vacant office spaces. We are looking at, much smaller spaces that are much easier to fill in a relatively short amount of time. And so you always want to make sure you're looking at the microeconomic scale in your local market. So this is my case in point here is to see that big blue dot on the right. Those are the offices that our people are talking about in the news. Where I invest that and where other people invest that is right over here in this less than 50,000 square feet, maybe 100. But you can see that probability of quote unquote default is very low because these square footage is much easier to turn over to fill those spaces with long-term tenants. So again, going back to, what it is of your specific goals, what your path is towards financial freedom, that will drive and tell you, what you would want to own, right? So for me, I knew that over the long term, because of my specific goal to help foster youth, that I don't want to just be full-time managing all of my properties, that I want to build a portfolio that is profitable, but it is passive, it's stable, it's predictable. Because if I have lease terms with my tenants, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, then I don't have to worry about, okay, I have like a massive turnover happening with like 15 tenants all with 1 year leases, happening next year, right? So I want to be able to build a very predictable portfolio, and it also makes it easier for my investors to understand exactly, where the portfolio is going, how we're doing, etc. A lot less variables to worry about once you do your initial due diligence, once you go through that stabilization period with that property, and a lot more absolutes based on how you structure those leases, with your property management company. And again, I personally like this business to business relationship. Um, I hear a lot of people say they like multifamily because everyone needs a home, and we all understand like, needing a place to live. But when I look at how can I impact a community in a very impactful way, that's a little different than what happens in the norm, is if I can cultivate and create spaces for businesses, for other organizations to thrive, that helps the surrounding community thrive. Because now you're bringing more jobs to that area, you're causing more growth in that area, and more people are going to want to move there. So you're impacting the economy in multiple ways, and so that's why I like that business to business relationships through commercial real estate ownership. So I task you to join in revolutionizing access to commercial real estate investors. So this whole spiel is to show and kind of take a peek behind the scenes in terms of, everyday investors being able to invest in commercial real estate. And it's not just for equity, wealth management companies, everyday people can invest in commercial real estate. So I wanted to just quickly go through common questions that I get asked, and then we'll just kind of open it up to the floor. So a lot of people ask me, how much money do you need to invest in commercial real estate ownership? I will give you the it depends answer, because again, it depends, like who you're working with, the scale of properties they're buying. I will say that commercial real estate investments, might be a little higher than what you're used to in terms of buying 1 to 4 unit properties, right? It's just inherent to the type of property you're buying. This is just a quick scenario to show like if someone were to invest like 50,000, what it could look like. But again, it really all depends on each person's individual situation. So we would just hop on a call with them, and understand their specific scenarios, so we're making sure we align to the goals that they have as well. People always want to learn more about commercial real estate, and so this is where, working within a team will help you learn, right, through experience. You can watch a lot of videos, read a lot of books, and that'll help you get a little bit of education. But again, just working with an experienced team that has done it before will help you learn, through that process. And then I'm more than happy to provide resources, so you're always learning. A lot of people ask, like, how does financing for commercial real estate property work? There's a lot of creativity. It all comes down to how creative can you be to get the deal done. If I had to sum up this slide, really just I have a very solid mortgage broker. So I might not always just do like a traditional bank loan. I might do a combination of different financing strategies to get deals done. I might do seller financing combined with traditional financing, combined with raising capital as well, which I've done. I've also done a 1031 exchange to take down a deal. So I mean, it's really limited to your creativity and working with your team. Really, it comes down to like problem solving, right? If you can identify what problems the seller may have, or what needs they have, and helping bring solutions to that'll help you inform, how you can take the deal down and make a win-win situation as best as possible. Is this for regular investors? If you haven't heard my spiel all night, yes, it is absolutely for regular investors. My first investors that I worked with that were my passive investors. One was a pharmacist of over 40 years and used his retirement account. He had a self-directed IRA to invest, over six figures into one of my deals. Someone else that also passively invested with me was a nurse for many, many years who transitioned to doing real estate almost full time. I think this person still wanted to be in the healthcare industry and eventually kind of buy her time back. Had a HELOC on a property, took out 400K and started allocating it to different passive investment opportunities until she got her own feet under her to do deals actively on her own. So I mean, everyday people, my founders of the mastermind that I was part of for out of state investing, drove for UPS and FedEx and raised three kids and was able to jump into commercial real estate. They own nearly an entire street of commercial real estate. They almost own the entire street that the city is considering letting them name that street. It's pretty crazy. They have a lot of properties that they've grown out there over the past decade. So yes, it is absolutely for regular investors. You don't need to have a wealthy background or have a wealth of experience on Wall Street or a decorated real estate investor. You can absolutely start off. I started off 3 years ago in real estate, and 2 years ago I bought my first commercial property after being in the market for about 8 months. So it is absolutely possible. I mean, at the time I was active duty, just came off submarines and got into my first investment. It is a great way to diversify your investment. So if you're invested in residential properties, this is a way to also diversify into commercial real estate. And it is also for those that are looking for a passive income opportunity, and the ability to hold that capital in place for at least 3 to 5 years, because these kind of properties take a little bit longer to stabilize than like a single family house. If you heard of the Burr strategy, I mean, people turn those things in 3 to 6 months. But commercial real estate, it's a little different game. How do I do it? Very simple process. I mean, really, it comes with some upfront phone calls to make sure that each party is a good fit. This is also generalized for like people outside of me, but if you ever come across someone that's also doing commercial real estate or syndications, etc., this kind of layout is pretty similar. So you'll contact the team. You really want to get to know them, because again, it's also kind of like a marriage, right? You're committed to each other, so you want to make sure, like, are we a good fit? Do we have do our goals align? Do our values align? So once we both decide to work with each other, that's when we actually go through the investment opportunities. We talk through that. You figure out, all right, this is what I want to commit my capital to. Again, it comes back to you have control of where you're putting your capital, vice just investing into the stock market or bonds. You don't have as much control. You do receive updates while the property is under contract. You fund your investment, and then you just sit back and receive that mailbox money and updates. So how do you fund it? This question is very common as well. I alluded to it earlier by two relevant examples that happened with me. Again, it goes back to creativity, but it doesn't have to come just from cash from your bank. If you have a retirement account, like a self-directed IRA or a 401k that you can roll over into a self-directed IRA, or a business SEP 401k, those are ways you can invest in non-traditional investments like real estate. You can use a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit, where you're borrowing against the equity and other properties you may have to go then and invest that in something that's cash flowing and providing you a return. So there's many different ways to have those funds. Maybe you yourself are just great at raising capital, and a lot of people that want to invest passively, and now you become that person for someone that's actively finding and acquiring deals. Now you become someone that can raise capital for them. So there's so many ways to fund your investment. How do you get started? Just feel free to reach out and contact me, book a call. But just want to open up to any and all questions.
I got a question for you, DK. First off, that's a really great presentation.
Oh, I
So
appreciate that. Thank you.
thanks for sharing. Yes. I guess my question would be, if I say I'm more of a passive investor, like I wanted, I'm busy. I don't really have the time to go through all this, analyzing deals and finding it and everything. How would I vet on another investor to partner with? Like, what are the things that I should be looking for where I could invest my money without, kind of be worried about if it actually goes to, or at least for I know there will be, it's not guaranteed since all of these are like risk, right? But are there any risk mitigation ways that you can vet on other investors that I would bank on to invest with?
Yeah, that is a great question, Faye. I appreciate that question. And she brings up a key point. When you're looking to deploy your capital as a passive investor, the biggest thing you have is really vetting who are you investing with, right? Like aside from the asset class, right? They could be investing in potatoes. But what really matters is, you know, do you have a relationship with that person you're about to invest with? Meaning, you should do your due diligence on that person. The same that I would do my due diligence on a property that I'm about to bring to an investor. I would do my due diligence on that active, manager, the asset manager, the person that's acquiring those deals, and see, all right, what is their track record, right? Who are they working with? Um, are they a criminal, right? Maybe do a background check on them. For me personally, I have a TS SCI clearance, so I have a pretty thorough background check. But even then, I would still encourage people, because I wouldn't have them blindly trust me. Be like, all right, feel free, do a background check, do a credit check. Like, by all means, you want to make sure that at the core, the person you're working with is a good person, is trusted, and that I personally would only want to work with people that our values and our goals are aligned. Because even if I might be talking to someone that might have a lot of capital, and this would be great, we can take down a lot of deals. But if I'm not going to bring value to that person because our values are different, our goals are misaligned, then it's not prudent for me to work with someone like that, right? So on the reverse side, as the passive investor, you want to make sure, like, all right, am I aligned with this person? Because I'm going to be in this for the long run, right? Treat it like a marriage, treat it like a relationship, really get to know that person. And just, find like those touch points. So it might take, multiple conversations, to kind of go through this. But that's probably what you want to spend your time doing, is really vetting, who it is you're about to be in business with.
Just really knowing the person that you're going to be working with, their experience and how it's aligned with your goals.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
And I
All
think
right. So much.
it helps when you see that person has a very strong vision as well, right? I think having like a clear vision, clear goals, that shows that person's a little bit more driven, right? They have a reason that they're doing this and they're going for it. And it's beyond just, money and being rich and being profitable, right? They have a vision and they're going for it.
Absolutely. Thanks, DK.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Hey, mahalo. Thank you so much.
Fabulous job, DK. Super proud of you, man. I appreciate you coming through and adding value and going deep into the commercial real estate side of things, both the multifamily and the retail side of it. And I think you brought up some really great points and benefits, the pros and cons. And I think even before you logged in, the theme for tonight was, hey, understanding your financial goals, understanding the different strategies out there, and picking the right strategies that align with your long-term goals. So perfect presentation, right on point, and a ton of value. So I definitely appreciate you coming through and
Oh,
blessing everybody tonight, man, and sharing.
thank you so much. I got one plug, if you may.
Yeah, go for it.
This goes back to what Johnny was just saying about, like, understanding what your goals are, your vision, and plugging away at it. Because I'm gonna tell you, once you're on this path and you make that decision, like, no kidding, you're gonna get punched in the face by life. Like, so I met Johnny last year, and I had this goal, um, on my residential portfolio to acquire 12 units this year, right? I was really trying to accelerate my ability to acquire, and build my cash flow base. And so last year I went under contract 3 to 4 different times and fell out of contract for various reasons, right? Like seller backed out, etc. Like, ton of things happen. But rather than get discouraged, back out and be like, what, I quit, I'm done, whatever. I have my day job. I'll continue doing that. I decided, this is life is testing me. I'm gonna keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. So I kept on with my team. I kept running my numbers. I kept putting out offers, and I crickets on my offers. January rolls around. I'm like, oh, it's early in 2024. February rolls around, nothing. March, nothing. April, I get some bites. My broker, because again, I don't just get the MLS fed to me. I have like curated deals that's sent to me that meets my initial criteria. She sends me stuff. I'm like, oh, cool, let's go for this one. I ran my numbers. Here's my offer. Oh, property went under contract. All right. April went by. I didn't hear anything in May. Didn't hear anything in June. July rolls around. Oh, look, there's these 3 properties might fit. I'm like, okay, let's go through that. Didn't work out. My offer got beat. I'm like, okay, let's just keep plugging away. So this continued for months, and now we're winding down into the fourth quarter, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting pretty tight to this timeline that I set for myself, right? For me, it's an arbitrary timeline when you look at it all, but I set an intention. I said, I'm going to work at this. I'm gonna continue to do it. And I actually had a call and then a meetup with Johnny sometime last month. I was like, I'm still plugging away. It's November, but we're still, we got like 40 days left of the year. This can still
Yep.
happen. And so about 2 weeks ago, so this was Thanksgiving, my broker sent me this deal, and she's like, you have to take a look at this right now. I said, okay. If she's telling me something, that means, like, take her seriously. Look at this deal. I open this deal up, and it is 46 units. They're all on the market for some reason. They have been owned by the seller for over 30 years. They're all paid off. He's managed it himself for 30 years. He just got tired of doing this himself and wanted to actually retire. She sends that to me, and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? All right, let me just write my numbers up and see what happens. And because this was sent right before Thanksgiving, like, all the offices were shut down by that Monday morning. And these were all on separate plots as separate transactions on the MLS. But I was thinking of a way to combine all of them, make this one transaction, make it easier on the seller, meet their need. Um, and so I underwrote this whole thing as just one transaction. Because there's something else that one of my other mentors that's in this area taught me, was that as you kind of scale the portfolios you're looking at, you're buying down your risk. If I buy a single family house and it is vacant, it is 100% vacant. But it took the same amount of work, right, for me to go under contract, to underwrite that deal, to get the funding for it, and to close on it, and then manage it. But if I'm buying, you know, 2 duplexes or 3 duplexes, if one of them is vacant, the percentage is much smaller. So I'm like, oh man, this makes so much more sense. I can just do this at a slightly larger scale. And so Monday morning rolls around. and I am at work, right? Mind you, I work in a skiff, no access. I come home, one of the plots is taken out, 22 units gone, already under contract. The other two plots I was looking at, they have offers pending. But because of the team that I have, she put my name out there, gave my story, said that he's, writing up his offers. They said, we'll wait for his offer to come through. I resonate with his mission, his story. And so that Monday night, I threw my offers in and got accepted for 24 units. So 8 duplexes and 2 quadplexes because I continued to be
Nice.
consistent, kept pushing for it. I won't close by the end of the year, but we'll have a hell of a start to 2025 when I close on this thing.
Let's go. What
Right.
time you sent that offer in? Like 5 p.m. that evening?
So Tuesday I sent in, or Monday I sent in a soft offer, just a verbal with my broker. They initially agreed to it, but wanted to see it written up. I wrote 2 offers, right? And I'll give this advice to everyone. This is actually like a universal advice I will give to everyone. Is every single time you put an offer on a property, you put at least 2 offers on that property. The reason being is that if you give one offer and they look at it, they can say yes or no. But if you give at least 2 offers, ideally 3 or more, they can be like, "Ooh, I have this menu of options here. I don't like this one so much, but I like this offer. Yeah, I like this one. Let's just adjust this right here, and yeah, we'll go with that offer." Right? So you're providing options for them. And so I did that. I provided a seller financing offer that was extremely favorable. At the end of the transaction, they would get, nearly 300K over asking. And they gave a traditional DSCR offer that was, close to asking, but I had to be, kind of competitive with where rates are at. And in the commercial space, it's sitting around like 8% right now. And so, presented both offers. Here you go. And I got more information from them because I submitted 2 offers. They said, "Hey, I like your seller financing offer, but my wife, she's in her 80s. Her medical condition is not doing so great. So although we like this offer, um, this one does not fit our timeline. But we do like your other offer. Can you adjust this? And then, you can submit the paperwork and we can go under contract." And so because of that simple fix, that allowed me to be competitive over offers that were already in their hands. And they said, no, 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 we'll go with his offer. I wrote those offers up at midnight on Tuesday of that week. And she submitted it Wednesday morning during working hours. And then that all got accepted by Wednesday evening, and submitted my EMD last week. So that was completely insane that that's happening. My inspections are going on tomorrow on all 24 units. And so now the real work begins, right? Being under contract, step 1. We did negotiate 30 days of inspection period, followed by 30 days of closing. So this will be a 60-day transaction. And I actually ran into my first hurdle last week. My DSCR lender can't lend on one of the plots because there's 14 units on it. There's 2 quadplexes and 3 duplexes on one plot. So my team, as great as they are, without my involvement, they said, "You know what, we'll call up the city, figure out how we can split up the zoning. So that way, one of the plots can now be just 2 quadplexes, the other one can be 3 duplexes, and we'll try to get that sorted out." Got feedback. Yeah, the city wants to approve that, so now we got to work with the seller to kind of work through
Boom.
that situation. So, just keep persistent, keep pushing through it. I mean, my last transaction was like 2 years ago, and it's just been kind of a grind, right? Like I've gotten a lot of no's when it came to raising capital, when it came to putting offers on deals, but I just see others around me continue to work hard and crush it, and so I know if I continue to push at it, eventually, things will start to change, right? You keep priming that pump,
Thanks.
eventually water will start flowing. So definitely appreciative for mentors like Johnny and others and throughout my life to kind of help me and push me through this process.
Salute to you, bro. Like that's it. That's like you just annihilated any excuse, any reason for someone to have limiting beliefs on why they can't do it. And it's just a testimony, man, to your perseverance and being able to overcome any adversity that gets put into you. Because like literally one multifamily transaction can change your life. Like I bought 2 apartment complexes with 100% owner finance. Like there's nothing mentally that would make you walk into a deal and say, hey, I want to get this building that you built at 98, 20 units, and I want you to give it to me 100% owner finance for 3 years. Like it's nothing that tells you to walk in with the deal. But when you start having conversations, you find about what someone's motivation, what they're looking to achieve, and how you can put a win-to-win deal together, that boom, stuff like that happens. But if you're not in the game, you're not learning the information, you're not putting in offers, you're not building the team, is never going to, I guarantee you, it's never going to happen for you.
Yep. You got to take action.
Awesome.
I mean, that was probably the biggest thing, like reason why I learned so much is because I just jumped in with both feet, as scared as I was, and just started taking action.
And what did you use rocket science? I know you got an engineering degree, but how much rocket science did you use to put this deal together, do any of this?
If I could go back to college and study something different, I probably wouldn't have studied engineering. I'm a mechanical and a nuclear engineer. But I use none of those skill sets. I don't even know if I know how to do the math anymore. You just need basic addition, subtraction, some division, which you can all do in an Excel sheet, and ask great questions.
Fifth grade math.
Yeah. Problem solving skills, that's probably something I learned from engineering, I guess. Yeah, you want to be able to see like, all right, what are some challenges that we're facing? How can we overcome this? Maybe a little bit of that. I would say like if you have those basic skill sets, then you're gonna do fine.
Let's go. This has been a phenomenal night. We're almost at 2 hours. I know you had something at 8. Clearly, you cleared your schedule, thankfully.
Yeah.
I appreciate everybody staying in. That this has definitely been value add. Definitely, hey, you guys know what the assignment is for week 3. Go in, share your feedback, your comments on what you're looking at, your strategies, what you end up with. For those that's interested to kind of see the process goes with like raising money for the deal, I'm actually doing a webinar Sunday night at 7, raising money for our multifamily deal in Montgomery. So you guys shoot me an email on Facebook or send me an email or shoot me a message on Facebook with your email address. I'll add you to the invite list for that. And I'm going to be doing that for investors this weekend. So if you guys can kind of see behind the scenes how that whole process happens with raising capital and that. And hey, get after it. Set your goals. It's 2025 is right around the corner. There's no excuse to not have everything laid out for how you want to change your life and how you want to build the life that you want to live. And DK's a living testimony to that, what's possible if you start taking action. And we're here. We got the resources. We got everything you guys need to be successful. So, hey, let's go. Let's make some equity happen. Y'all have a blessed night. We'll see you next week.
Johnny, just a quick reminder for everyone. Yep. Next week, we're going to do our live session on Monday instead of Tuesday. So we can give away for, Christmas Eve. So we're going to do it on the 23rd, Monday, 7 p.m., same time, same link. We're going to send you guys the link, if you same link to join. And then, yeah. Likewise for the following week to give way for the New Year's Eve. But next week it's going to be exciting because we're going to teach you guys on how you're going to finance your deals.
Yes. And then how fitting that Sunday night we're going to have I'll give you guys a kind of behind the scenes look with raising capital and putting a webinar brief together and all this stuff. So you'll be able to see that. And yeah, it's going to be good because like all this stuff is 100% possible. This stuff that we're doing is not rocket science, but it's really, I had a call today, 3:00. I took it, like DK said, I took it in my car. He's like, oh, you're in your car. It looks like. I was like, yep. Had a conversation and, was talking through what we got going on in our Montgomery portfolio. And he was extremely thankful for the opportunity to invest in our deal. He's like, man, I'm so thankful that you reached out to me. Because it had been probably at least 6 months since we had chatted. He's like, I literally 4 days ago was saying I needed to invest in some multifamily, get some passive income coming in and diversify a little bit. And then you send me the text message. I'm like, boom, let's go. Like there's people out here that need the deals that you're putting together. that want to invest in real estate, and they don't have the time or the mindset because they have the limited beliefs on how to do it themselves, and they need you to bring the deals and the opportunities for them to grow their wealth because they don't have the time, they don't have the mindset, and they don't see the opportunities because the only real estate investor they may know is you. And so that's it. Enough for tonight. You guys be blessed, and we'll see you all on Monday. Thanks again, DK. Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks,
Keep
everyone.
crushing it.
Congrats, DK.
Happy holidays, everyone. Yep, we'll keep you updated. Should close in
Thank
February.
you.
For
Have
sure.
a good night, guys. See you next week.
Thank you.